Whether this is your first time here or your 1,000th time here, you might just be coming home. I'm Ann Kadlecek, minister here, and it is so good to see and hear you this morning in this, our annual homecoming service, marking the start of a new church year. And I offer this invitation to join the journey, adapted from Lynn Cox. Come, you accidental pilgrims, you who find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come, you who emerge into this place as an act of liberation. Come, you who seek a life of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come, you who bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken open in revelation, hearts full of love to share. Come, you who seek courage, and you who have more courage than you realize. Come, you who are poised for transformation. We begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome on this journey. And here, now, you are joyfully called into community. Each week when we gather, we light a chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Our chalice lighters today are Liz Richards Hart, Allison Hart, and Octavia Hart. As the chalice is lit, please join in saying our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice in reunion as we share the flow of our hearts, celebrate our fountains of joy, hold each other through storms of grief, guide one another through rapids of transformation, and rest together on ponds of stillness. May we embody the spirit of water, its many forms, and its life-giving essence. Thank you, chalice lighters. "40 years ago, a gathering of women who were working to address sexism in this faith held a worship service. Part of that service was a ritual in which each woman brought water from where she lived and shared what made that place precious, as the waters were combined to symbolically connect the work of each to the whole. This ritual of connection and sharing spread and became a Unitarian Universalist tradition that's often used to mark our regathering in community at the start of the church year. Through this ritual that we call our water communion, we are connected to one another and to other Unitarian Universalist congregations and to those who came before and those yet to come. Today, everyone has been invited to bring water from your travels, your home, or anywhere that holds meaning for you, or water that represents water from such a place. The kitchen sink is a perfectly good source of water. Or if you didn't bring any water, we have water here that you can pour to represent whatever you would like it to. And online, you can participate from wherever you are. The metaphor is flexible. The water connects us. Today, our sharing about the meaning of our water is in our writing or drawing on the paper droplets that John mentioned earlier. Those droplets will be shared and collected a bit later in the service. We won't be using them for this part, so just please keep them with you for a little bit longer. We'll tell you when. We begin our gathering of the waters with water from last year's ritual. This water holds water from decades of Albany UU water communions. Molecules from oceans, rivers, swimming pools, kitchen sinks, garden hoses, from the lives of the people of this community. This water symbolizes our connection to those who came before and those who came before them. And now each of us can add a few drops of our water to the communal bowl, signifying our significance and our connection to the whole. In just a moment, I will ask the choir to go first so that they can then sing as the rest of us pour. So when you see the choir finishing up, I encourage you to maybe start with the front rows and work your way back, and please come up the middle and go down that side and then around in the back if need be, so that we can give the musicians space. And while all this is happening, we will also be sharing the photos that we submitted of the time or place that our water represents. We'll cycle through the photos more than once, so if you miss some while pouring, don't worry, they'll be back. Just hold off 1 second, John, and I'll let you know when. Or not. If you prefer to remain in your seat and have someone else pour your water for you, please feel free to give your water to someone near you, or raise your hand and Elizabeth or an usher will assist you. And if you're online, you can pour your water into whatever bowl you have available. Through the movement of water, through space and time, it is all connected. We will leave our waters that arrived separately and have now become one here in the center until later in the service, when we will return to bless this water and through it, our community.
Our story today is Almost Nothing, Yet Everything, written by Hiroshi Osada, illustrated by Ryoji Arai, and adapted to include some words from Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha. It shines brighter than anything. It runs clearer than anything. It has no color, but can be any color. It has no shape, but can take any shape. You can touch it, but you can't hold it. Even if you slice into it, it won't be cut. It can slip through your fingers like nothing at all, but life would be unthinkable without it. You can find almost anything inside it. Even when nothing is there, take a look. There you are, with the sky behind you. It flows like tears. It rains down like falling stars. It cascades and courses. It fills and overflows. Only oxygen and hydrogen, simple as can be. But nothing means more to life as we know it. Like the mother of us all, it creates life. Like blood, it courses through us, refreshing our spirits. It is the voice of life. It is the voice of being. It is the voice of perpetual becoming.
What are you going to be when you grow up? I used to get asked that a lot, and I gave a lot of different answers. It was an unfair question. Even well into adulthood, Even when I was acting as though I knew the answer, really, I didn't know. I didn't feel called to anything. I had a friend growing up who declared at age 4 that she would be a veterinarian, and she never wavered from that goal her entire life. That might be a call. Or those Olympic athletes who persist and achieve greatness in spite of the most challenging obstacles. There's our impressive stories. This is how we often think of being called, as a sense of a personal mission that must be fulfilled. We might be called to a career, or a place, or an achievement, or a role. For most of my life, I thought that a sense of being called to something was only available to a few select, fiercely committed people. And I did not appear to be one of them. But I've come to believe that there was and is a call. I've come to believe that we are called, all of us. It just might look a little different. There's a wonderful ancient story in the Hebrew Bible about a very early prophet named Elijah. Prophets in those old tales experienced a personal call to tell the truth about their society and their world, as it was and as it would be. They often suffered as a result. It turns out people don't always want to hear the truth about themselves or their world. But in those stories, prophets could prove how right they were by performing miracles. So in this particular story, Elijah challenged his rivals to a competition to see who could perform the best miracle. He won, and then he killed all of his opponents. Hundreds of them, we're told. That didn't sit well with the queen, and Elijah was soon running for his life into the wilderness. He ran a long way, trying to get to a place where he could hear a call to what he should do next. In the language of that text, he was trying to hear God. But what he finally heard, instead of clear instructions, was a question. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah launches into a long speech about how he's right and everybody else is wrong and the queen is out to get him. But his God ignores all that and tells Elijah to go stand on a mountain. There he experiences a great wind and earthquakes and fires. He can't hear a call through all that noise. But in the silence that follows, he hears the question again. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" A little slow on the uptake, perhaps, Elijah delivers that whole speech again about how he's right and everybody else is wrong and the queen is out to get him. And this time, what he hears is, "Go home. Go home and get to work helping the next generation of prophets." The call was not to great solo achievement or to being the most right. The call was to let go of being so enamored of being right that he separated himself from others. It was a call to share his power and responsibility, to be in imperfect relationship with other imperfect people. That is a different kind of call. It's a quiet call, often obscured by the noisy, attention-getting drama of this life. And we can't hear it in those moments where we, like Elijah in the story, are taking ourselves a little too seriously. Because it asks us to be less focused on being the best, being right, being understood and appreciated, and more focused on getting to work with a community of people who are just as imperfect as we are. That call to community can be hard to hear, especially when we're tired or anxious and the flaws of those around us just seem to get bigger and bigger. Sometimes we need a brief escape into the wilderness and a chance to complain to the universe about everybody else who is just so wrong. And sometimes a particular relationship or community is harmful to us. We are not called to be there. But there is a call into community that offers nourishment and healing along with the imperfections and challenges. A community like this one. We are all inherently worthy individuals. That's a basic tenet of Unitarian Universalism. And we are all connected. Wherever we're going, we go together. Our interdependence is also a fundamental principle of this faith. And it calls us, worthy individuals, into community, where we live the tension between our commitment to that inherent worth and our inherent interdependence. That tension means we won't always be happy. The ways in which we're right won't always be appreciated. Sometimes we will misuse our power and hurt people. Sometimes it will feel as though people are out to get us. We aren't always free to do what we want. But isolation is not a long-term strategy. The truth of being human is that we are called into relationship, into community, into our place in a vast interdependence with each other and all that is. Called by God, if that's your language, called by the future, humanity, the earth, the universe, called by this congregation, by love, by the voice of life, the voice of perpetual becoming. Our language of choice matters far less than our attention to that call. For as we heed that call, we may find that it is in community, beautiful and complicated and not always comfortable. It is in community that each of us grows more fully into our true selves. I think you know this call. The quiet, persistent call into the ebb and flow of community has brought you here and continues to call each of us home to get to work together as we learn and grow and change. I'm glad you're here on this journey, in this congregation, coming home. May we together find the courage and the trust to allow that call into community to guide us in this new church year. May it be so. Amen.
Now that we have had a chance to share our joys and our sorrows and our water, now is the time that we are going to share those paper water droplets on which we have written or drawn or made some kind of indication of the significance of the water that we brought with us today, or perhaps the water that we would have brought if we had remembered, or perhaps the water that you didn't know you would even be using, but just maybe anything of significance from your summer would be a good thing to write down. If you're on Zoom, I invite you to type into the chat what that significance is, or you could use emojis, anything you want to, but just take a minute to put a comment in. All of these droplets will eventually be displayed in Channing, and we'll make sure that everything written in the Zoom chat gets its own physical manifestation. Also, you guys are doing a great job here this morning, so if you need a minute to wiggle or move around or take a deep breath, go ahead and do that as well. All right. So now that we all have our droplets out, take a second just to look at what you put. And we're going to pass these around. And each time we pass them, there's going to be a different direction. And we're just going to do it. So don't worry about getting it right or if you do everything perfectly or anything else. Just go with the flow, haha, and we'll just keep moving right along. And when we're done with all of our passing, Izzy and Dee Dee and Charlotte are going to collect these droplets for us and go post them on a bulletin board in Channing for us to look at during coffee hour. So what I can tell you while people are getting the materials is that our activity today is based on the newly adopted Article 2 principles that the Unitarian Universalist Association voted on in June. And these are the values that our faith, if that's what you want to call it, or belief system or worldview is centered around. And so each one of the passes that we do will be linked to one of these values. So, I think we're ready. Sorry if this adds pressure to anyone who's still writing, but here we go. In the spirit of generosity, I invite you to give your droplet to someone around you. Just give it away. If you are on Zoom, select someone's comment about the significance of their water and give it a like. So just hand it off. Give it to anyone who's around you. All right. You guys are off to a great start. Next, we are going to think about interdependence, or how we are all connected. So for this next pass that droplet again to anyone around you, but we're going to keep passing until I say stop. If you are on Zoom, go ahead and select a few more water comments to like. Okay, time to stop. You guys are doing fantastic at this. Next, we pause for equity. Does everyone have a droplet? Does anyone need anything in order to continue? In a second, you will need something to write with again. Making sure people have the things that they need to do what is asked of them is part of equity. And now we are on to transformation. For transformation, I invite you to take your crayon or your pencil or whatever you have and just add a little something to the droplet you're holding. You don't have to completely cover up what was there. You could use the backside just to add a little doodle or a word, maybe a symbol. Once you're done with that, just pass this again to someone near you. Just once this time is fine. Just maybe to your neighbor. Right. All right. Super. So our next pass, we are going to think about justice for a second. And for the purposes of this activity, we are just going to simplify that down to the idea of taking turns. Please pass your droplet to someone who you have not yet passed one to. If you're on Zoom, you can respond to a comment that you haven't already liked or reacted to. All right. Thank you so much. So now, this brings us to pluralism, which means different things can be important to people, and that there are lots of ways to be in and do things in the world. So for this pass, do whatever you want. Hand it frontwards, backwards, sideways. Hang on to it if you really want to. It's all up to you. Fantastic. All right. So as we're finishing up our free will pass here, now we are on our final turn. And this final pass is all about love, because love is what those 6 values are centered on. So take a deep breath and take a look at your droplet or droplets, because at this point, who knows? And just take a moment to wish loving kindness on yourself as you're holding the droplet, on whomever wrote it, to the people who already passed it, and to the people who will pass it, and to the people who will post it, and to the people who will read it. If you're on Zoom, you could type a heart into the chat to send some love out into the world. And then after you've had a chance to wish your loving kindness out into the world, you can pass the drops into the center aisle where they will be collected, and then they'll go down to Channing to go up on the bulletin board. Izzy, Dee Dee, and Charlotte will come up the middle aisle to collect your droplets from whoever's sitting in the center here. All right. And that's it. So thank you all so much. You did an amazing job. Let's give yourself a round of applause for fabulous participation. I think all of our droplets are going to make a great lake. And in the spirit of sharing, in addition to bringing water to share this year and to sharing your thoughts, you are invited to bring some water home with you as well. To help keep our sense of connection to each other and our reflection on these values going this year, there is a small jar of water for each of you on the table in the lobby, as well as this card. And this card has those 6 values on the front of it, and a water meditation inside of it that you can do by yourself or with somebody else in your family. So on your way out, and you don't have to grab it until you're all done with talking and snacks at coffee hour, pick yourself up a card and a little jar of water and take it home, and I hope that you enjoy this. Thank you all so much.
For all you have given and in all the ways you give, thank you. And now we conclude our water communion ritual with the blessing of the waters. As the water has blessed us in ways that you've shared and in ways that only you know, let us now be the ones who bless this water. For it is made sacred by its deep connection to the lives of this congregation, by the meaning it carries for each person who poured it, and by the link to the past and the hope for the coming year that this ritual represents.
May this unified whole continue to be, for us, a symbol of our gathering, of our connection, and of our commitment to the common life of this church and the future to which we are called.
As we do each year, we set aside some of this water now for various rituals and ceremonies in the coming year, including for mingling with the waters of next year's water communion. May the connection and meaning represented by this water call us back to ourselves, call us home to this community, and carry us through the coming year with hope, love, courageous faith, and deep awareness of the blessed ties that bind each to all. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 1007. There's a river flowing in my soul. In our hymnal, it is attributed to Rose Sanders, but in 2003, she let go of that name, which she had come to see as her slave name, and she became Fea Ora Rose Ture. In addition to being a prolific songwriter and playwright, Ture is a lawyer and civil rights and education activist in Selma, and was the first Black woman to become a judge in Alabama. In that context, I can only imagine the power of that river within, calling her to shed an identity of limitation and discover her true name. There's a river flowing in our soul, calling our true name, calling each of us into imperfect and life-giving community. May we heed the call today and in the coming year. I now invite our chalice lighters to come forward and extinguish our flame. And as they do, please join in saying our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our service has ended, but all are invited to stay for conversation in a breakout room online or a light luncheon just down the hall in Channing.